Welcome back to Locked In with Ian Bick. I'm your host, Ian Bick, and on today's episode, we have Jacqueline Polverari here today from Connecticut, where I'm also from, to tell her incredible story of how she was just a normal wife, a mother to kids, and all of a sudden, mortgage crash hits in 2008, and her life spirals out of control, leading her into some criminal activity in relation to the business that her husband and herself ran. In this story, we hear about what exactly happened after that market crash to her and her family, how the FBI arrested her while she was taking a shower, 15 federal agents armed raiding her house, while the neighbor records this whole thing going down, and then she's ultimately sentenced to a year and a day at the federal prison camp in Danbury, Connecticut. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Thank you guys for tuning in and all the love and support you guys give us week after week. If you could take a couple quick seconds, leave us a like, a comment on YouTube, and leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. It helps us tremendously. All right, guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Jackie. Jackie, welcome to Locked In today. It's great to have you. You're another Connecticut resident. We've had a few people on from Connecticut now, but it's awesome you're here, and thanks for making the trip. You have such like a fascinating story, and I'm excited to dive into it today.
Thank you for having me. It was a great drive. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's like the country out here.
I know. Yeah, I know.
When I'm driving some of the guests, I think I'm like kidnapping them when we pick them up at the airport. When we had Johnny Mitchell on, he's like, where are you bringing me? Because it's like in the middle of nowhere, but it's like this, it's a small, quaint town, and it's nice. It's different. It's not what you'd expect. It's not like New York City.
Yeah, it's nice.
So starting at the very beginning, where are you from? Where did you grow up? What's like early life for you as a child?
Kind of boring. I grew up in Connecticut, East Haven, Connecticut. I was there until I was 28, and I moved a town over to Branford, Connecticut, and I'm still in Branford in the same house today. My childhood was, at the time, I thought normal. I guess as we become adults, we see what's toxic. Actually, in the last year, I've really did some deep diving. So what I thought was normal was a little bit on the toxic side. But two older brothers, I'm the baby. Grew up in, East Haven is just a little Italian town, and kind of had a boring, I was the geek. I was the band geek in school. Yeah. I was one that was the academic band geek, so I didn't get in a lot of trouble. I wasn't one who smoked, did drugs, drank, none of that. I don't even think I had my first drink till I was 22.
So you're very by the book.
Well, I was by the book. I was by the book.
It's interesting because it goes so far off from that down the road. I guess when you're a kid, you'd never expect that you would have landed yourself in federal prison.
Right. Go south quick.
What did your parents do for work?
My father was in insurance, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was 16. And then she went and worked at a retail store. So my father was always in insurance. He worked for himself, was self-employed. Mutual of Omaha he worked for, the guy with the animals. And they're both retired, and they live with me now. They're 85, so I take care of them. They live in my in-law apartment. It's great to have them there.
How are the financials growing up? You guys upper class, middle class, lower class?
I'd say middle class back then. Today it would be lower class, but
different times back then.
Yeah, different times. We didn't go on vacations or dinners or anything like that.
But you didn't have to worry about money or...
Yeah. Well, back then the kids didn't know about money. My parents didn't talk about money in front of me. So I'm assuming the way we grew up, with clothes and stuff like that, it was middle class because we didn't really worry about much.
And who were you closer to as a parent, your father or your mother?
Oh, yikes. I am a daddy's girl, I'd say. Yeah, definitely my father. I think that's a big catalyst as I look back on my shortcomings.
So yeah, I want to get into that. What was your relationship with him as a child, and how do you think that affected what's to come?
I think I always looked up to my father. He was the smartest man I knew. I still, smartest man I know. My brother, my older brother, was the number one at everything. Number one baseball, number one football player, number one band, music, everything was number one. So a lot of emphasis was put on my older brother. And my brother, who's just 2 years older than me, him and I kind of, I think, fell through the cracks a little bit because it was always about my older brother. So I always tried to overachieve academically. You know, I wasn't the pretty one or, you know, the girls that are the popular girls. So I always tried to overcome academically.
And do you think you were noticed by those overcomings, or were you always like in the shadows?
I think I was always in the shadows. I liked it there, though. I was the chubby kid who liked the shadows, because if I wasn't, then my brothers were making fun of me. So now I look back, and my mother, you know, my brothers used to make horrible fun of me, of the way I looked. And my mother would say, that's what boys do. Today, I say to her, no, that's not what boys do.
Yeah.
But I was picked on pretty badly as a kid.
And like the relationship with your father, were you guys like doing activities together, or was he more towards the brothers because they were the superstars, the ones that were known with sports, and you're just trying to stand out and be like, hey, I'm over here?
God, no one's asked me these questions. That's not fair. No,
that's what makes us different.
I know,
you know?
Right? This is wonderful. No, he worked a lot. He wasn't around a lot. So when he was around, I was always there trying to, you know. Back then they had these dot matrix printouts of all clients, and they used to do cold calling because it wasn't like it is today. And he'd do cold calling at night, and I'd help him highlight the names, and I always wanted his attention. And I mean, he gave it to me. I danced, and he came to my dance recitals and stuff like that. But it was really more about my older brother. I don't think me or my other brother got out of his shadow, ever.
Do you think that if you weren't in the shadow, things would have turned out differently, looking back on it?
How can we know? Yeah. Really, you know, it
makes you wonder maybe sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you know, looking back, every single thing we do in life changes and alters the next thing. So obviously, if things were different then, it would have altered my life to a different path. So I guess, yeah, you could say the way it worked out was the path that I took, and it went south. So,
what were your aspirations at that age? Like high school, a lot of high school kids, I know what I wanted to do when I grew up. What did you want to do? And was that like influenced by the way your relationship was with your dad too?
I don't think so. I always wanted to be a lawyer.
A lawyer?
But my guidance counselor told me girls like me went to hairdressing school. So guess where I went?
You went to hairdressing school?
Right out of high school.
Didn't go to college right away?
Not yet. No,
wow.
I went right to hairdressing school, and hence I failed out. I was bad, really bad. Thank God I could never, I touched someone's hair and it would turn green.
Now, what did she mean, girls like you? Because you said you were a little chubby, you were in the shadows. That doesn't really seem like the stereotypical girl that would go become a hairdresser.
Yeah, it was kind of an odd thing for a male guidance counselor to say.
Oh, that was a male guidance?
Male guidance counselor, yeah. And for me, it was more, he knew my brother. And, you know, your brother's doing these great things. And if I even got into trouble, it would be, you know, how could you not go to class? Your brother's the basketball coach or the football coach at the time. So I don't know. I don't know how that came about, but I did what he said. I went to hairdressing school. You know, idiot I was.
That shines a light on like one of the biggest problems in the school system too. Even back then, this is many years ago, that still occurs to this day. You know, if you could have been a great lawyer, maybe, you never know. And he kind of diminished what you wanted to do. Yeah,
it was pretty stereotypical. Looking back, not a lot of kids from my class went to college. I mean, I graduated in 1984, so, you know, it was a lot of technical. A lot of the guys went to become plumbers and electricians, but not a lot of kids went to college.
Really? It's interesting how times have changed, because it went in phases. It went from at that time period, like you're saying, college wasn't big. Then it went to a phase when I grew up, college is everything. And now I feel like it's going back to, it's not everything, and you can do more other things than college.
Oh yeah, my kids didn't have a choice. They were going to college.
Oh, okay. So you told them they had to go to college.
I didn't even tell them they had to. It was just, that's what you did.
Yeah.
You went to college, where I could see why you wouldn't go. I mean, I have 2 kids with student debt that's astronomical, and they didn't really need to go to college.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of friends that went to college for something, and they're doing something entirely different than what their degree is, and they have the debt with it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy. My son's a musician. He's a professional violinist in the city, and he went to conservatory, but in reality, he could have just went right into the city and got a private teacher and saved thousands and thousands of dollars.
And learn. I mean, some of the biggest pop stars in the world, they didn't go to college for a musical degree.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so fascinating. Like when you look at it and you break down like the nitty gritty on that.
Yeah.
So after you drop out of hair school, how old are you at about?
I was still 18.
18. So what's your next move? What do you do? Do you feel like a failure at that point too?
Yeah, big time, because I wasted money. But I paid for my own hairdressing school.
You were working at the time?
Yeah, I worked since I was 16. I had 2 jobs when I was 16. And I went and worked at this retail store, kind of like my mother did. And then didn't decide to go to college till like 1986. But I was dating my high school sweetheart since I was 15, and I ended up marrying him.
Oh, that's so nice.
No, I'm divorced from him.
Oh, you're divorced. Oh, that's not the
It was
original.
nice then, though.
Okay, it was nice then.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he wasn't the original Mr. Polverari.
Okay. Well, the concept, that I don't know. You love a good love story.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No.
Okay, so you do that. You take a couple of years off. What are you doing in those years off? Just working retail?
I was planning for my wedding. You know,
You're gonna get married that young.
Well, I wanted to, because the only way out of my house was to get married. In an Italian family in our town, you stayed living home until you got married. You didn't go like today, you push your kitchen, like, go enjoy yourselves, live with your friends. That's not the way it was then.
And both parents are Italian?
No, my mother's very Italian, and my father's Irish-English.
Okay.
But you would say he's Italian, because my mother made him become an Italian father, I guess. They were very strict.
Yeah.
So, that's what I basically got married at 22.
And your parents supported that?
Oh, yeah, they supported it big time. They loved him, and I found out the day before I got married he was cheating on me. The night before.
And you still married him?
Yeah, my mother said, we got 320 people coming to the wedding. Half of them I couldn't understand. Anyway, they spoke Italian.
Yeah.
But it was more about appearance, to my parents.
You look at the toxicity of that in itself. Yeah.
Yep, now.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I married him, stayed married 10 years. Had
Even
2
after,
kids with him.
Did you ever confront him about the cheating?
Oh, you kidding me? We went to the girl's house that day, the morning of our marriage.
You went, so this was a whole confrontation.
Oh, huge, because he kept saying, we're just friends. But the girl's mother called my mother. So it was kind of.
On a landline telephone.
Yeah, the landline ring. We had call waiting. Yeah.
That is crazy. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you. That must have been pretty traumatic in itself, and that not getting, I don't know, I feel like when you get cheated on, it breaks, you don't feel accepted or not loved.
Yeah, it's another thing, you lose the trust, and then again with the esteem and confidence, it's again piled on. And looking back, it was toxic, and I'm living it and didn't think, I thought it was normalized somehow to me. I don't think he ever cheated on me after that until 10 years later when I did leave.
It's just, that's why I'm so against young marriages, because it's just so young. You have your whole life. I have friends that they'll meet someone in high school and they're still with them. Don't you want to experience other things out there, life lessons? I always say I've lived 4 lives, because I've done so many different things between the nightclub and prison and this and that. I didn't go to college, but I got that life experience.
Right. So you do have a college degree. It's just a life experience, better than a lot of people I know.
And debt, that's a Harvard, Yale degree, or Yale degree. But no, it's just, I don't know. I feel like now, like if I met someone and I was in a position where I would want to marry them, like I would be much more comfortable doing that than 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, yeah. My parents, even to this day, my daughter lived with her fiance first. And I had definitely lived together. Because once you're married, see how it is. You don't know how somebody is until you're living with them.
Oh, they weren't going to get married till after they...
Yeah, they were living together. Okay. They bought a house and then set the marriage up and everything worked out great. But, things happen between relationships left and right. You just don't know.
Absolutely. And was your dad, like at this time period, because you're kind of like in limbo, is he like having conversations like, hey, Jackie, you need to get your life together. You need to figure things out?
No, it was the day before my wedding. So my father actually was the only one who told me not to marry him.
But even just career-wise?
No, I never had guidance on college. I never had guidance on what I wanted to do. Like, I sat my kids down. What do you want to do? I never had that. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of emphasis. My brother disappointed my parents, my older brother, because he could have gotten into the major leagues. He decided to go to school for music.
Really?
And switched gears on them, and they weren't too happy. And about that time is when he quit school. So again, it was more about my older brother and what was going on with him.
So you got married. What happens next? What career do you finally end up with?
I ended up going to school. So that's when I started taking classes, and I started working at the theater.
Theater? Okay.
Yeah, I am a member of the IATSE, International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. I still am. And I did wardrobe. My ex-husband's a sound engineer. So
that was the one at the time that you married. Okay.
Yeah, he a lot of nepotism in the theater industry. And he was a sound man. He went right from high school working at the Schubert Theater. And then because I went to hairdressing school, they had Peter Pan was going on. We were doing the production for Peter Pan for Kathy Rigby, and they needed a hairdresser. So I'm like, I can cut her hair. It was really short.
What college was this that you go to?
I was going to Gateway Community College.
Okay, I've heard of Gateway, yeah.
Yep.
Is that still around now?
No,
okay.
It's actually closed. It's now...
It
was South Central Community College when I went. It's now Gateway.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's Gateway now.
Interesting. And do you graduate from there?
Yeah, I had an associate's.
And it was in theater?
It was in business. I just took business classes while I was working at the theater.
Okay.
And then I switched over to Southern for my bachelor's, and I stayed there for my master's in business.
So your life is normal?
Yeah.
For the most part. Do you guys buy a house, or do you have kids at this time? What's the dynamics?
Well, we bought a house, which was next door to my brother. Still in East Haven. All like in the little community. Yeah. And I was pregnant with my son. Mm-hmm. I was 26 when I was pregnant with my son. And so everything I thought was, it was going the way it was supposed to go. In our family, it was just the women cooked and cleaned, and Sunday dinner, they made pasta and way too much food. And that's the way it was. I took over Sunday dinner, so my parents would come over Sunday, and it was going pretty good. But again, I thought kids were going to fix, my relationship, as many young people do think.
Yeah.
And it didn't. It just piled on more issues. My ex-husband constantly put me down. You don't need school. Why are you going back to school? And I became self-employed, even though I was working at the theater, because you only work when there's a show. So I started doing business consulting for myself, and that was always a problem for him. It was constantly putting me down.
Now, is this the husband you start a company with, or that comes later?
No, I never started a company with my husband, ever. No, that's way later.
Okay, so this whole time period pretty much comes to a close then.
Yeah.
No major issues, nothing too bad.
Nah.
How do you guys end the relationship?
We ended it amicably at the time. I had 2 kids. I was a single mom. I went to work for my brother. He had a title company, and he title searched. My one that was 2 years older than me. He was a title searcher from the time he got out of high school. And So I went to work for him.
So that was your introduction.
That was my
into the
introduction to title searching.
What did you think of the title business? Were you intrigued by it? Did you like doing it?
It was all right. It was, I did closings. I was a notary. So I did a lot of closings, refinances. You drive to the house, you have people, they signed it, and all I did was notarize. It was pretty good money, but it wasn't something that really crossed my mind as being a living for me. But I was a single mom, so I had to do whatever I could to be able to be home for my kids. So self-employment was the way to do it. And when there were shows that came in, like on a 2-week run, I'd work that. My mother would help out watching the kids. And it really worked out well because I was there for everything for my kids. Until my brother and his partner got into a big argument. And I saw something wasn't right there. She was taking money from him. I knew it. She was taking money from him. So I ended up leaving, and I opened up my own title company.
And what year is this? How old are you?
That was in 90, God, had to be 98 maybe, because I had gotten my master's in business. No, it was later than that because I went to work for the Children's Center. I got my master's in social work after that. So 2000, I think, I opened up my title search company in 2000. It was a title company.
And what gave you the idea to do that? Because you weren't passionate about that.
No.
It's not what you wanted to do. What do you think brought you to do that?
I saw what he wasn't doing. And I was like, he could really build this into something great. So he worked for title companies. So I didn't want to really hurt his business. So he worked for attorneys. So what I did was I started to work for title companies only, and I never would cross that line. I knew someday he'd come to work for me because his partner was tanking the business. And I knew that was going to happen. My father worked for him doing title searching at this point because my father was semi-retired and started doing title searching. And then my older brother came to work for me.
So everyone in the family.
Quite interesting, yeah. My brother had my father, and I had my older brother and my mother working with me. My mother would just answer the phones.
Is this a profitable business at this time period?
Not at all. Not at all. It started to be. It's a business that you can make a living at, but not really profitable. So I had the dream of it being profitable, and the way I tried to make it profitable was covering the entire state of Connecticut instead of just the area that I'm in. So I started hiring other notaries to do closings. And we were doing about 15 closings a day.
And you're meeting your second husband in this time period yet?
No, not yet.
That comes years later?
Comes a couple of years later.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was divorced and I was still
in limbo,
figuring it out. Yeah,
single mom phase.
Yeah, absolutely, which is great. The single mom phase is pretty cool.
Yeah. When you were a young single mom too, so you had plenty of opportunity to get out there, the dating scene.
Yeah, I was in my early 30s, mid 30s, I think. And but I was a workaholic. And when I wasn't working, I wanted to be at the kids' functions. Yeah. So it was, I really wanted to build something that I could make my father proud of.
Do you think he was proud of you at that time, seeing it come together?
No, I don't think so. There was a lot of turmoil in the family because it was two companies, and he was working for my other brother. But then he started to do work for both of us, and then there was arguments. And Italian families, there's always arguments, who's not talking to who for this year. And then
my mom's side of the family's Italian, so there's always drama, always going on.
It's the drama side, which is kind of fun sometimes. I'm over the drama now, obviously, but back then you're in it.
Yeah,
you're like, this is so I started my own company, and then my brother's company tanked, and he came to work for me.
Why did it tank?
His partner she was a hot mess.
That was the one that you thought was stealing. And
she was doing the books and everything, and she was just I guess padding more her side than his. And in the title business, the mortgage business wasn't doing so great. That was in 2004, I think. It was starting to kind of pile up because in 2008 we all know it crashed, but It started to do really well. And because I was working with title companies and not attorneys never pay. So he had attorneys owing him money left and right, and title companies.
Isn't it funny that the attorney doesn't pay? The ones that'll sue the shit out of you if you don't pay them. And
that's right.
That's crazy.
It is. It's absolutely crazy. They never pay.
That's like corporate America, though. It's like the big fishes, like they'll put you on 60, 90 days net, whatever, and the smaller guys got to do it. It's nuts.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. So he came to work for me. So at that point, I had both my brothers and my father and my mother, and now I met Dave,
which is your
my husband.
Your current husband now to this day.
Yeah, he was my neighbor. So
your neighbor. So he was there like the whole time.
Not the whole time. I moved into a new apartment.
Okay.
And he had a little girl, and she was the same age as my kids, and we moved in. I remember my son when we pulled in. It was a snowy day. We pulled in. I had this old Saab, the old Saabs with the convertible tops. Yeah. And I pulled in, and my son's like, "Oh, Alexa lives here," because she was outside. He hated her. So I'm like, "Oh, great, this is wonderful." Yeah. And we ended up getting married.
And what did he do for work at that time?
He was construction shutters. He built shutters, high-end shutters. He hated it. So here's me. I'll teach you how to title search. And I did. I taught him how to title search.
And then he joined your business at that time.
And then he joined me.
So now it's your husband, your whole family, all working. I mean, this could have been a success story. I mean, if you guys were building it up and everything.
Yeah, it really could have been.
So I guess the major question.
It should have been.
Yeah, the major question is, where does it go wrong? Like, what's the turning point? What's happening in the world that causes this to go south?
Well, it was really the industry. So the industry was booming between 2004 and 2007, but it was getting sloppy, very sloppy. And attorneys were a mess. Now, in the state of Connecticut, only an attorney can issue a title policy. So in order to have a true title company, you have to have an attorney.
And did you?
So I didn't at that time, but I did I had a friend that was an attorney who I was doing a lot of work with. I gave him 40% of my company. So he would join us. So now I would have an attorney to move forward and build the business larger. And he joined us. And at that time, a lot of closing attorneys were doing things very wrong. And I was a paralegal. I was a good title searcher, one of the best in the state. I knew my stuff. I knew mortgages. And we had now about 35 notaries working for us, about 15 title searchers, half of them family. My niece was running my closing part of the company, and my best friend came in to run the title search side.
And this is all legit, 100% kosher, no issues.
Yeah.
How much revenue is it generating?
Not a lot at all.
So, but you could afford to pay everyone?
Yeah, at that time.
Okay.
In 2006, 2007, I could afford to pay everybody.
It was paying the bills.
Paying the bills.
And gave you a little bit of a salary or something?
A little bit of a salary, but I was paying my husband too, so he was making a good salary at that point. And then the mortgage industry started to come down and crash. And the attorney I was working with was doing some illegal stuff that I knew about. I was turning my head to. And the business was, I started to I got a job so I could pay my bills. So I got a job at Wells Fargo as a loan officer.
Okay.
And which was stupid. Who does that? Who builds a business?
You got to do what you got to do.
Your whole family's working there. You're paying them, and you got to go get a job.
Yeah. Hey, it's part of the entrepreneur life, you know?
Yeah, not really.
I mean, I remember when I first started out, though, I was driving Uber. I was doing Uber Eats. Like, you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do, right.
And you had kids. You had a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, the kids were in middle school at this time.
So when that crash happened, do you see the writing on the wall, like what's going to happen? Or are you just like this, we're going to make it through, everything's okay?
Yeah, I thought we were going to make it through. And then payroll started getting difficult to meet. And my family just never said, "Are you okay?" The pressure that I felt I was under was way too much, because how can I close everything down? I got my whole family working for me.
They're relying on you.
Yeah, they're relying on me. So I took a mortgage out on our house. And
You and your husband's house. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it was my husband's house because it was in my name when we first bought it in 2004. But then because I owned a business, we quitclaimed it to him. So I didn't have my name on it in case anything went bad way back then. So it was just his house. And I took a mortgage out and signed his name.
You signed his name. Yeah. Did you know what you were doing was wrong in that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how could you not? I was forging my husband's name on mortgage documents. The crazy thing at that time, this is how bad, sloppy the mortgage industry was. No one asked to ever speak to my husband.
Ever, yeah.
Yeah, no processor, no...
no ID verification?
No, yeah, it was no income, no verification loans.
How much was the loan for?
$415,000.
So the house, that is worth what? It's got to be double or triple that.
No, it was no income, no verification, and 95% equities. Yeah,
equity.
So it was worth maybe, I think at that time, $480. And we're close to the water, so I take this massive loan out, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? And now the attorney I worked with, he did the closing for that loan.
And he knows what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So the two of you were in cahoots.
Yeah. So I funded payroll for a long time with that. And I paid the mortgage. Never did I not pay the mortgage. So I'm thinking, okay, this isn't that bad. It's morally wrong. It's ethically wrong. How could it be really illegal? I'm paying the mortgage. I'm paying my payroll.
And he has no idea.
And my husband had no idea. Yeah, no. And my partner, he was doing closings and wasn't paying off some mortgages. I think there was like 5 or 6 of them. He didn't pay off. There was
for clients of yours?
For clients of it actually was his personal law firm. So he got snagged, and he gave up anybody he could. And I was in that mix.
So he said that you forged.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah,
he threw you right under.
Threw me right under the bus. And about 8 or 9 months after I took the mortgage out, I told my husband about it. I couldn't handle that part of it because I kept running home to get the mail before he did because I didn't want him to see anything, and I was a nerd. Looking back, it was like, how did I live that way?
Yeah, what was like the stress of lying to someone you cared about like that?
It was horrible because I never lied to my husband before, and he was my best friend, still is. And when I told him, I thought for sure he was going to walk out the door. Now, the FBI had not been involved at this point. And I remember him saying, well, we sign each other's names on a lot of things. And we'll get through this. And I thought, oh, this guy is...
That's a keeper right there.
He's a keeper, yeah. Little did he know, 2 or 3 months after that, the FBI was going to come knocking. And, he didn't know anything. I didn't know I was a target at all. It was very fast.
Because you didn't know that your partner had... you on you.
Yeah, I did find out when he was on the front page of the paper. He actually came in that morning and told me, because I would have saw it on the front page of the paper. He brought the paper in. He said, I just want to let you know. And at that point, I said, we got to part ways. I can't be involved in thinking I was golden. I can't be involved with his stuff.
So did you buy him out in that instant? Or?
No, because I gave him 40% of my company. So I took my title search company, which I originally started with, and moved the office back to my house because I had a full basement. Yeah. So we made the basement into the office, and my family was still all working for me. All the notaries were gone. They went with him or either left. So we kind of split the company in half.
If you asked your husband for the loan or money, would he have done it for you?
No.
He would have said no?
Yeah, he would have at that point said, you need to get out of this. But I think that's obviously why I didn't ask him, because I knew that.
Could you have folded the company and walked away from it?
Yeah.
But the pressure was on, like, what's the mindset behind that? Knowing, because we're very similar in that way, where I had opportunities when things started to pile up and I had to make decisions because of that. What was your reasoning and logic behind that?
I didn't have any. I was running on pure instinct, I think. And my instinct was to fix everything and not disappoint my family. And what would I do if my brother lost his house and my parents lost their house and, my other brother lost what he had? And it was all about, I look back now and I really thought what I thought was what I bought people was why they loved me. So the only reason I thought I deserved love was giving people things instead of, hey, I love you just for you.
Yeah.
I think that's why I pushed my husband into becoming a title searcher, because I thought, I'm going to give him this job and he's going to love me more. And he wouldn't have. It would have been the same. But in my mind, it's what I can give people. Not anymore. I've since then done a lot of soul searching. But back then, and it was very toxic. But to me, again, it was normal. That's the way it was. So I was running on instinct, not even on choices.
Yeah. But I mean, it's okay to give too. It just, I guess there comes a certain line because people have that as an attachment style or, they're a love language to be able to give. And you don't want to lose that ever either, because very few people in the world have that. Yeah.
And the thing too is I think it's very similar. I have a lot of women that I work with that have addictions. It's very similar to an addiction, because instead of being addicted to drugs, or you're addicted to almost power to be able to take care of your whole family. I'm a caregiver. I want to make sure they're okay. I want to fix it for them, make their lives okay. And in the meantime, I wasn't okay.
No.
And when I brought the business back to the house, about 4 or 5 months after that, I got raided by the FBI.
So let's talk about the day you're raided. How does that actually go down? What's the whole story?
It was bad. I mean, I was lucky in some respect. My mother and father planned a trip where they were driving cross country, and they left the morning before. So thank God, because my mother would have been there working. And the FBI did wait for my kids to get on the school bus. So my kids weren't home. However, every morning, my son would miss the school bus. So every morning I'd hear him, running down to get the bus and then running back. And so I'm in the shower. Me and my husband are in the shower. And, no crappy stuff going on. We just were in a hurry. And we had a large shower, both in the shower. Thank God nothing was going on. And I hear banging at the door. And I'm yelling, Thomas, I will be out. We'll be out in a minute, thinking it was my son. And 2 minutes later, there was FBI agents in my bathroom.
In your bathroom? What are they wearing? Bathroom. How do they look?
Full on bulletproof vests. Like, what the heck was happening here? And
they see you fully naked.
Fully naked. And my husband, the first thing he said, let me get a towel for my wife. That's all he said. That's all I remember, actually. It could have been more things, trauma. But so I put a towel around me. He put a towel around him. And they said, we're here. We got a search warrant. And I said, call my attorney. I had an attorney at that point. We had an attorney across the hall before I moved. And he told me, he said, you know what? You're going to end up with problems. And so I said, well, you got me if I do, right? And he did. So they called him and he said, look, they're there to search the house. They have, because the business was back at my house. They don't, your husband can go to work, you can go to work. They're there to look at the computers and take everything. So I was like, oh my God, okay. So no, I called everybody and told them there was no work. We weren't working that day because I didn't want anybody to come in. And my next door neighbor, who also worked for me, videotaped it.
I was reading that article. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. She videotaped it and called Channel 8. And she was sending it to people, which I didn't know about at the time. And I also didn't know what it obviously looked like on the outside of my house, where there was about 15 agents around the house. And I'm sitting in the kitchen, and they looked through the whole house, and the agent comes out and goes, well, it was the cleanest house we've seen. And I was like, well, of course I clean, not knowing what he meant, that the cleanest house meaning there were no guns or drugs or, I'm not knowing that. I'm thinking he meant cleanliness. And they took 2 computers and let me keep the rest for work, but they did copy the hard drives. So while they did that, anybody who did anything wrong, because I was a paralegal, all the files were on my computers. So anybody that did anything wrong were going to get caught at that point. And they took everything and they were gone. It was probably like a 3-hour thing. I mean, they were respectful. They really didn't go in my kids' rooms. And that's not to say anybody hide anything in your kids' rooms. They just didn't go in my kids' rooms. They did go in my room, obviously.
Yeah.
And they were out the door. So that's when I knew, oh boy, I'm in trouble here.
What's the first thing your husband says to you when they leave?
He went to work. He left and came home and he said, yeah, okay, we need to have a serious talk here. Is there something I don't know? And I said, yeah. And I said, there's stuff that is going on with Gabe, who is my partner. And I said, I'm not gonna tell you that stuff, because I didn't want to put him in any position to know something where and my attorney said that, do not speak to anybody. And he told me that specifically, do not speak to your best friend about this, do not speak to your husband, shut your mouth.
Great attorney.
Yeah, and I tend to tell everybody everything. I'm pretty transparent if you've seen any of my stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but I knew, I said I couldn't say anything. And a week or 2 later, we had to go into the FBI office. I had not known that they had already spoken to most of the people that worked for me, not my family, but my best friend they did speak to. She was my business manager. And they said to her, do you know anything about the finances? And she said no. So I was obviously going to have her back. And they asked if she knew anything. And I said no. I took full responsibility. They put the mortgage in front of me. They said, you know what this is? And I said, yes, I do. And they said, you want to explain? And I said, I really don't have an explanation. I signed it. I took it out. And a lot of people get scared when I say this. I didn't just take a mortgage on my house and use it, the funds. I misappropriated the funds because the first mortgage was not paid off. That's what the biggest part of the crime was. I know, and I forget that. And a lot of people say, oh my God, I thought you could take a mortgage out on your house. But you have to pay off the first mortgage when you take a mortgage out. So
they didn't know that, the bank did not know at this time period that you had another mortgage?
I didn't disclose the first mortgage.
But there's no way for them to check? I mean,
it was on, no, because it was on my husband's credit report, not mine.
Oh, okay.
So, but shame on them for not knowing anything else.
They're definitely way more stricter now when it comes to all of this.
Yeah, because of the 2008. My dad's calling.
Oh, that's your ringtone? Oh, what a ringtone.
You can just close it. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's a crazy ringtone.
Yeah, well, you should hear when my mother calls.
I didn't think people still did like sound ringtones on their phones nowadays.
Yeah, I'm old school.
Okay, you could get that on the iPhone. That's funny.
Yeah. Somehow, I'm a big techie, so I figured out. I'm again the nerd that I love the tech stuff.
Well, you're still young, You're not like an old mom or anything. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. 56 is I feel old.
That's younger than my parents.
Okay,
so you're good.
Okay, I'm good.
So, you guys go in the FBI office. You admit everything.
I said, I did everything. And they put a couple other mortgages in front of me. One was of a very good friend of mine who did a very similar situation that they got off my computer.
That you helped her with?
It was a him. And no, I didn't really help him with it. He took a mortgage out and just lied on the application and overstated his income, and a different situation, but it was still illegal. I didn't really know it was illegal though when he did it, but they did get that and they put that in front of me, and they wanted to get the guy he worked for. They were very interested in the guy he worked for. And they said, if you work with us, we won't put your parents in prison for money laundering. I said, what?
Yeah, they love that.
What do you mean? Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean money laundering? Well, you paid your payroll with money that you misappropriated that has flowed out to your own family, and that's called money laundering. And I looked at my attorney, and he said, yeah, they really could have it. They wouldn't have, or maybe they would. Who knows what they do? They're so corrupt that it's they play on people's fear.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't know what you're looking for, but what I do know is that Wells Fargo should be completely, every single person up the top at Wells Fargo, because these robo-signings that they're doing is so illegal. And they said, okay, well, if you want to work with us, we will we'll offer you some time off. So I needed to think. I had no idea what they were even asking me to do. So my attorney and I had a conversation at his office, and he said, there's this thing called a 5K or K5.
501K.
Yeah, something like that. That if you do cooperate with them, and they'll give you this letter, so at time of sentencing. Now I'm thinking, what's sentencing? How can I possibly, I'm paying my mortgage. How can I go to prison for this? And he said, look, you have exposure. You're going to prison. And I thought, how is that possible? And paralegals were going to prison left and right, and attorneys were going to prison. Everybody who was doing mortgage fraud. So I was adamant. I said, well, why not? Why isn't Wells Fargo, who never even asked to speak to my, I was trying the defensive thing because I hadn't really come to full round that, hey, I committed a crime. And I don't really talk about this much because nobody ever really asks these questions you're asking. And so he said, so if you work with them and you have title searchers, you're in the vaults, get these assignments that are robo-signed, and you'll get this 5K letter. I didn't know it was 5 years of waiting to get sentenced just because I got them. I said I would cooperate with them.
So you were cooperating with the government for 5 years?
I was cooperating with them for about 6 months,
okay,
thinking I'm going to not go to prison because I'm doing this. And I was collecting all these robo-signs, thinking I'm going to be the one to take down Wells Fargo. And
no,
I absolutely know that's bullshit.
So interesting perspective here that you're saying all this because like you're a mother, never commit to crime before. In the criminal world, like this is considered like snitching, ratting.
Yeah.
Does that cross your mind at all when you're doing this, or you're just like, what is your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is everybody's going to love the fact that I'm going to get Wells Fargo. So, in my mind, I didn't even know what the word snitching meant, really. I know in the drug world, it's not a person. I'm not giving a person up. I'm giving an entity up that everybody hates and are so corrupt.
Yeah.
And they weren't really, concerned so much about the robo-signing. What they really wanted was time because they were going after my friend who was also on there. Now, what they started to do is pit us against each other. And they said, we're going after Tom. And Tom and I have done a podcast together since then, but in the last year. But they said to me that, Tom's saying these things. And they would say to Tom, Tom's saying these things. And they said, we don't want Tom. We're not interested in Tom. We want his boss. And I said, I don't know anything about his boss. I'm not going there. And so I wouldn't. And Tom and I had a few conversations. Well, during those conversations, they were recorded. Conversations were recorded by the FBI. And Tom didn't know. I didn't know. And they ended up putting an indictment against the loan officer who was Tom's best friend, to try and get Tom to cooperate, and he wouldn't either. And then they put an indictment against his boss, and so now they just made us wait. And I waited 5 years to get
5 years on supervised release, pretty much.
Supervised release.
Are you checking in with the probation officer and everything?
Yeah.
Now, you were big in your community, like your kids, I was reading with their school, volunteering.
Yeah.
How are the other parents looking at you? Are they like, I don't want you near my kids? Do you have that label automatically as like the criminal?
It was an odd thing because at this point, 2 of my kids were in high school, and I was very involved with the band. And the band director, the parents were trying to get him, and the orchestra director trying to get him out. And we were really heavily involved in that. So when the FBI raided me, the headline was band mom gets indicted. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? You can't, you gotta put band mom, like, you know, I'm a geek as it is, and now you're gonna call my kids out. And because, you know, it's, I guess I shouldn't, I'm blessed because that was the only stuff that was in the paper. The Channel 8 News that did come and film it got the very end of it and had me, they said I was a realtor. They had it completely wrong. Said I was a realtor who was getting raided by the FBI. And it showed one quick glance of my house. That could have been any house.
Well, these news things never even get it right.
Yeah, they never do.
What was your conversation with your kids? Like, how is your relationship with them?
I sat them down immediately. And I think that's one very important thing. And I was a social worker as well. So I had my master's in social work. So I sat them down and I said, look, you all know that moms are human and we make mistakes. And I really screwed up. And I made some mistakes at the company in business, and I'm in trouble. And I still really didn't think I was going to go to prison at this time. So I remember my son saying, well, what are you saying, Mom? And I said, I'm saying that I'm in trouble with law enforcement. I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be, but you're going to go to school and you're going to hear a lot of things. And they really didn't. They didn't, nobody really bothered them about it. I was pretty surprised. They had a really close friend group and no one said much to them about it. And they didn't speak to anybody about it. So it's kind of odd to me that, you know, why was this so easy? Yeah. It shouldn't have been. And my son went to college at that point. My other daughter came into high school. No, they were in middle school when this started. Yeah. So they're going through school. Again, this was kind of normalized now, normalizing toxicity for them, right? Because it was normal for them, for their mother to be in bed crying or depressed, or it became normal. Everything I tried to do opposite of what my parents did started to kind of be the same because it was that toxic environment.
Yeah, and it passes down. What about your relationship with your father?
My parents, again, no one asked me a question.
They didn't care that their daughter, their only daughter, daddy's girl, is arrested by the FBI?
No one asked me anything. They didn't say, are you okay? They didn't say, what happened? What'd you do? Nothing. We support you. That's it.
Wow.
My brothers, we support you. Everybody supported me. And nobody.
That's a good family.
Yes, I mean,
in that
you're
sense,
right.
Yeah,
you're right. In that sense, yes, but nobody said, are you okay? Because I wasn't. I just got raided by the FBI, and my parents didn't ask me if I was okay.
I think they probably also didn't know how to react because it's so abnormal. That's why people like prison content or this kind of content, because they're curious.
Yeah.
And when people are curious and they don't know, it's hard for them to give help to someone.
Yeah. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that how could they not know? They saw what was going on and the pressure I was under and how checks were bouncing. And I mean, my father was very intelligent. My 2 brothers, pretty intelligent. My mother was answering the phones. How could they not know?
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things. So for 5 years that happened. And
so what year do you finally get sentenced?
I got sentenced in 2014.
How old are you at this time?
God, I don't know. I can't do
in your 40s,
in 40s,
probably.
yeah.
In your
I was
40s,
in my early
okay.
40s.
You
at
go
this
into
time.
sentencing. Who's with you? Your husband, your kids?
My parents.
Everyone's there.
Yeah, they're all there. My parents couldn't hear. Thank God.
And the government's probably making you out to be the wicked witch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was terrible. I was prosecution. I was the worst person. I was overprivileged. I was greedy. I was everything they say in every financial case.
Of course,
you're
it's the
greedy.
same
Yeah,
thing,
it's the
yeah.
same exact thing. And my kids went up and spoke together, and my husband spoke, and there was hundreds of letters. And the judge said to me, "You know what? You have an incredible family here. You have all kinds of letters. Your kids are gorgeous. They have a great. You're doing good. Shame on you." And if you didn't cooperate, and I got points off for that, I'd give you the full extent I could. And I ended up with a year and a day. I could have gotten 3 years.
Do you know why they give the year and a day?
Yeah. If I get that extra day, you get good time. So if I got a year, I'd have to do a year at that time. There was no CARES Act.
So how much do you do on a year and a day?
7 months.
So
Yeah.
because of the fact that you got a year and a day, you got less. So the judge was doing you
Yeah, she did me a favor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I heard a year and a day, and I thought my life was over. Right? Shame on me, because I met women that were there for Clover. Women that were there for so long, and I was one of those people who came in and out while she was there. So
Now you get that year and a day. How much time do you have ready to prepare for prison?
they gave me, I think, 4 months, and then my attorney said, "Do you want to wait till after Christmas?" And I said, if I could, and they let me self-surrender January 5th.
Did you ever think in that moment that maybe it was like a little bit privileged to have that opportunity, because not everyone gets that?
No, because I didn't know anything about the
But would
criminal
you come to
justice.
realize that when you spent time with someone in the prison?
Yeah. And I realized a lot.
Because that's not the norm.
Yeah, not at all.
That's like what the celebrities are doing. That's celebrity treatment right there.
And I had because back then it wasn't like it is now. There was no podcast. There was no openness. There was no transparency. There was nothing. I had nobody to help me, guide me through. I had no idea what I was going into. My husband had me doing Krav Maga classes, and I'm like,
Yeah, what were you doing to get ready for prison?
Yeah, he had me doing Krav Maga classes.
Were you watching shows or anything, to TV shows to compare it to? Orange is the New Black is out at that point.
It just came out.
Did you watch
and
that?
I watched that, and I stopped watching it because I'm like, oh my God, I've never gotten into an altercation. What am I going to do?
And it's loosely based on the prison you're going into, too.
Yeah, it was, I thought, oh, this is bad. And, I had to sit my kids down again before that, talk to them. And they supported me. They were wonderful through it all. They kept in what they were feeling. And I say that's wonderful then. But now I'm realizing it wasn't. It wasn't healthy for them to keep it in. I was very selfish because all I saw was I was going to prison. And no.
It's traumatic.
Yeah.
You're like, anyone, if the roles were reversed, they would be thinking the same thing.
Yeah, there was I didn't see the external.
I mean, I think in life, when someone's struggling, it's hard to focus on other people when you're drowning. It's like, how do you save someone else when you're the one drowning?
Yeah. But as a mom, your job is to save everybody else. And I tried, as much as I could. And then I went in.
The night before you go in, what's the conversation like with your husband? Are you guys like, we can have an open relationship? Is he, he's fine with waiting?
I'd kill him. I'd say.
Yeah, but that's a lot to ask of someone, like it's his wife going to prison.
It's like, look, if you're going to cheat on me now, leave.
That's
because I couldn't handle that. I have low self-esteem. I have no confidence, and now he's gonna. And that's all I thought of. He's gonna cheat on me. That's it. He's gonna cheat on me.
What does he say to you?
He's like, no, it's 7 months. You're gonna be home, and we didn't really know. He's like, you'll be home in 6 months. You'll be home in 5 months, because who knows? I didn't know how the system was.
Do you guys have PTSD going into that shower?
Oh, yeah. I won't take a shower with him, period. And I won't take a shower with people not home.
Wow.
So it's funny. But then I had on my back was, Teresa Giudice was self-surrendering the same day as I was.
Yeah, can you talk about that? What happened the day you self-surrendered to prison and
there was media everywhere. So my attorney, I had a different attorney. I switched attorneys for sentencing. And the attorney I had for sentencing, we're good friends now. He's a cool guy. And he says, okay, I'll call you when you should go. And he calls me up and he says, she surrendered at 5 a.m. So you just go. And I'm like, is there media there? You know, they're going to see this. We had a black SUV at the time. And I'm like, geez, they're going to see this black SUV with tinted windows. And they're going to see me driving in. And there's going to be media. And there was media all in front when we pulled
And this is the Danbury Federal Prison.
Yeah.
I actually went to that prison
did
too.
you really?
I was on the men's side
men's.
in 2017.
Okay.
I was there because I live in Danbury. I'm from Danbury.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The nightclub I owned is right down the road from that prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I remember watching on the news because this is right. I just finished my federal trial when Teresa was self-surrendering. So I remember seeing the news, and because I was fascinated with that because I was going through that same situation.
Yeah.
So you self-surrender that day. What's the experience like?
Well, you know, when you drive in, you see the men's prison, and it's scary because everybody told me I was going to a camp. But when you drive in, I didn't see any camp. All I saw was this big prison with barbed wire around it, and that's where I had to self-surrender. And my husband took me by himself. And when I tell you the first episode of Orange is the New Black, they got it right because it was horrible. Saying goodbye to my husband at the door. I mean, there was no bologna sandwich, you know, we didn't sit there. And I didn't really realize what he went through, recognize until years later. But on my end, I felt like such a failure and a disappointment, a horrible mother, a horrible daughter, and, you know, everything, because I blamed myself. And the guilt, and it was just, what did I do? I had the judge was right. I had it at all, and I screwed it all up. And what's wrong with me? And,
all those waves of emotions hitting you.
Yeah, and I get emotional thinking about it, you know, because even that's, I think, a different piece for men and women. You know, it's for women as a mom, it's very different for a guy as a father. What a disappointment. You don't hear very much about the moms going to prison.
You never really do.
Yeah.
They're not putting that in anything.
Right. It's not
know?
sensationalized.
No.
You know, and they like the sensationalized stuff. So here I am sitting there thinking, this is the prison I'm going to be in. And I went through intake, which we all know is horrific.
How was your first intake at federal prison?
Oh,
like,
man.
walk me through from when the guard takes custody of you.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I can be nice to these people, you know, and female guards were there, and then they had this like little curtain thing that you have to get in and you have to strip. And luckily, I was able to keep my own bra.
You keep
because
your
it
bra.
was all cotton. And I don't know who told me. I think my attorney said just wear a cotton bra. You might be able to keep it white. But you do. You have to squat and cough.
Naked,
completely naked. And that's horrifying because for me, I was like, well, what do you think I'm going to do? Put something up there? It's like,
but it happens.
It's horrific.
It happens.
Yeah.
Girls are smuggling in drugs, everything.
Yeah, it is one of those things that happens that you don't even, you know, it's something that wouldn't cross my mind, but apparently it happens.
Was that like the only time you were ever stripped out there, though?
No, one other time.
Okay.
Easter. I was stripped out Easter by male guard.
A male guard stripped you out?
Yeah.
That's allowed?
No.
Why did a male guard strip you out?
It was a guard that was giving me a lot of trouble while I was there. A couple other women were sleeping around with him, and I would not. I was not interested, and I would not. And he just didn't like that. He thought I was better than him. And he gave me a really tough time. And it was Easter Sunday, and my kids and my husband were there, and he made sure they saw me get pulled aside. And there was a little room outside, right on the side of visiting. Whenever somebody got stripped out, they knew they were going in that room. And it was by random that people, very rarely did women get stripped out.
It's like that at the men's camp, too, for anyone that's listening. You know, normally when you're at the camp, you don't get stripped out at all. They'll do a pat because that's the minimum security.
Yeah, or they got the wand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he takes you to this room,
Yeah,
and he's like asserting dominance basically in front of your
Yeah.
husband and kids.
Yeah, they not in front of them, but they knew because he took me in the room and stripped me out. And I was like, you can't do this. And he's like, there's no women guards on today. And there wasn't. And I'm like, well, then you shouldn't be strip searching me. And he said, I saw you slip something in your shoe. And I said, okay, well, then let me take my shoes off. There's no, but he did strip me out.
Made you get fully naked.
Fully naked. And I don't even think he looked at me. I think he just wanted me to be humiliated.
He wanted the satisfaction.
Yeah, of the power and the humiliation over me. And that was the only time that, besides going in, that I got stripped out.
And I think that's one of like the most dehumanizing factors for that, and the no first name. You have no first name and the strip searches.
Yeah. Yeah. It's purposeful. You have no identity. The government owns you. And I think that many people feel, oh, they need to go to prison. They need to go to prison. I'm not one of the advocates that think prison should be abolished, but I do think that we need to have a big overhaul, and that camps are purposeless.
No,
there's
no purpose. It doesn't make sense. No offense.
None at all. At the time, my son was going to WestCon. He probably went to your bar, God.
So you got to ask him about Tuxedo Junction.
Yeah, I'm going to have to ask him. But
if he was a partier, he probably went at that time period.
Probably went. But he was going to WestCon. I remember when he graduated, I was in prison, and I thought I could walk out here, go to his graduation, walk back. No one would know I was gone. That's how ridiculous.
That's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Now, you said these women are sleeping with this male officer.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Did you witness what goes on?
I never witnessed anything. I made sure I was not. I went to bed early. I didn't want to get involved in anything.
But women talk.
But women talk. That's the thing, and you know what's going on because women talk. And yeah, women were willfully sleeping with guards, and some willfully not. When you've got a long sentence and there's a good-looking guard and he's offering X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I don't judge anybody for sleeping with a guard because they have power, and the power to get you something from the outside, even lipstick or anything that you may need.
No, I always ask, because we hear a lot about the guys that sleep with female guards.
Yeah.
What do you think is the logic behind a man sleeping with a female inmate and risking his career for this woman? Is it because he's not attractive himself and he can't get, anyone outside?
Yeah.
What is the logic?
I mean, you can't know what's in anyone's head, but I think that I think it's about power, because similar to the crime I did, I didn't, I needed to fix this. I needed to, and I did have the power I was the owner of the company. These guards have such power over these women, and they're not police officers, right? You and I both know that a couple of the guards wouldn't be able to run from here to there. I don't know how they pass.
But they do get guns, and they got guns too.
They do have guns. Yeah. But it was just odd that and a lot of the guards are married. Yeah. Why would you even, there's no...
Go role play with your wife if you need that,
There's no rhyme or reason except for the power. That's all I could think of, is that they, and then we had some great guards. We had this one cute guard who couldn't say my last name because it's Polverari, and he used to, and I was the snow. I used to shovel snow, and he would just say snow wading.
Oh, that was your job?
Yeah, I went down the men's prison. I would shovel the front.
I was a snow shoveler too when I was at the camp.
Yeah, but so did you shovel the front?
We would shovel the front where the visiting room was and stuff. We'd get up. They'd wake us up at 2 or 3 a.m.
Yep.
And we would go and we would shovel. Yeah. Now, because you and Teresa self-surrendered the same day, did you guys form a bond? Because in the prisons I was in, whoever you go to that prison with on day one, you connect and bond with each other.
No, absolutely not.
You didn't like her?
No, not that I didn't like her, is that I think there was a sense of entitlement with her.
Really?
And I'm in her book. I'm the woman with the salad.
You got put in Teresa's book?
Yeah, it really made me mad.
Wait, why did she put you in her book?
She had said that, there was people who were privileged who got to eat their salads in their room.
You got to eat?
And I was the one who ate my salad in my room. Yeah.
And she's not privileged for what?
For not having a job the whole time. I don't know. But we got put in separate. When you're first put in, you're put into what's called the bus stop.
Yeah.
And we had 12 girls in one room. We got put into separate rooms. rooms. So I think you form more of a bond with the women that are in that particular room that you're first in.
I can't believe she called you privileged.
Yeah, right? Isn't that crazy?
That is so funny.
Yeah. But mind you, I went to prison and I made sure I got spray tan. I had a tan. I had my hair. I had my nails. I'm like,
so you weren't helping yourself.
I was not helping myself because I didn't know.
When's the first time you got like checked by another female inmate, like that really put you into reality? Like, this isn't like a nice area. These are women, some of them there for like, multiple years, maybe even decades.
Yeah. I had an issue with a Spanish woman who was there for 15 years, and she worked her way down to a camp. She was a queen pin, and she liked me at first, and she thought I had a cell phone, and I didn't, and she wanted to use it, and she it was visiting. I was going to visiting, and I realized at that point in time that if I didn't stand up for myself, that was it. So I had a top bunk, and I jumped off my bunk. I put my hands in my pocket, and I said, you know what? Go ahead. Punch me. I'll take one for the team because everyone wants you out of here. There was no shoe. So the thing is, they would send the women to Brooklyn if they got in trouble at the camp.
They sent a special van to come pick them up. We would hear about that. That's funny.
It was like, I was like, you want to go to Brooklyn? Because I know I'm not going, but you go ahead. I'll take one for the team. Punch me. And I stood right up to her. And when you stand up to the bully, they always
and she left you alone after
that? And the CO came in at that point because I was yelling, at her. And I went black. I was like, okay, bring up the Italian in me. It's got to come out because I've got to, and I realized, okay, this place isn't just a, club fed. It really was.
It is, but it isn't. Yeah.
Right. It's.
Now, you just said you had like a nickname for both the snow shoveling, but what were like the inmates calling you? What was your nickname you were donned on like the first week?
I don't think anybody really called me anything but Polverari.
Okay.
A lot of the inmates, I didn't really know a lot of people till after, believe it or not. Like even Dr. Clover, who was on your show, we didn't meet till after.
Really?
We were there together. We were actually in the same dorm together. And we really didn't become friends till after.
Yeah, I have so many guys that I was in prison with that reach out now, and they're like, hey, I was with you. And it's interesting because everyone has their guard up. And whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, my last question for you about prison, and then we can move on to what's next, is what's some rules that you've learned in prison that you never would have thought would have been rules because they are not existent rules on the outside? And these are rules I'm talking that the inmates make for them themselves, not the prison. Yeah.
Well, we all know about the cafeteria. There's seats that you have, seats you don't have, and you don't cut anybody in line, and the older women have respect. And you have to call them miss. And then there's the prison daughters, right? I was a prison mother and I didn't even know it until somebody called me mom, and one of the women said, that's serious. I still talk to her today as a mom. And I said, what do you mean it's serious? And that is serious. Now you have to be responsible for her. And every time the girl did something wrong, it's still to this day, it was my fault. That doesn't exist in the real world. You don't have to, you could sit where you want in the real world. You don't have to make sure you're not sitting in somebody's place, or at cafeteria, if there's 2 eggs left, you can't take it because the 2 people at the end of the line that are, they're theirs. They're not really crazy things. They're more respect. I think there was more respect in prison than there is in the outside world. They're really, if you think about it, we called the older women miss, miss so-and-so, miss. We had respect for each other and respect for the time that they were doing. And I think that for me, it's not about rules. It was about the respect that shocks me how much respect inside there is versus outside, I don't know about the men's prison. You got a whole other issue, the gangs and,
Yeah. All right, so you do this 8 months, 7 months out of your federal prison sentence at the Danbury Federal Prison.
Yeah.
You go to a halfway house.
Yeah, that's prison.
Yeah, the halfway house, especially Connecticut. I was reading one of your articles that you went to a Community Solutions ran one.
Oh, yeah.
I went to the Community Solutions ran one in Waterbury.
So
I know what it's like. The viewers don't really hear about halfway houses.
Yeah.
What was that like for you, and why was it so bad? Why was it worse than prison?
Well, you're transitioned into supervised release. So I was there for 5 years. Then you're transitioned into prison. Then you're transitioned into halfway house. So you go from a camp where there's COs, and there's order at least. There's respect, like I talked about, to your transition to a halfway house, which is state and federal. So the first floor was 4 beds, federal. The rest of the house was state. The bad thing is they immediately put a line between you because the feds have air conditions, but the rest of the house doesn't. So there's different rules for the feds and the state. The state could have iPhones, but feds couldn't. I could have my car there, but state couldn't. So I'm in this halfway house, and most of them are drug-related crimes, or some of the women were violent crimes that they're in the halfway house. And there's I'm sitting laying there, and there's a basket coming up the side of the house with drugs in it. People would drop it and they'd pull it up, and there was no real guards. The girls that were there
like kids
were
that
like
just got out of
they're they're younger than my kids.
My case manager was my age, if not younger, and they're trying to put all the structure into your life. It's crazy.
Yeah.
They're strict.
It was insane. And it's really tough because you have to really listen to them. So here I am, self-employed. I had my business. My title search business was doing well. It survived the 7 months. My daughter really took care of it, and from college. And I wanted to go back and work for myself. So they didn't allow me to unless I took a paycheck.
Yeah, you needed pay stubs.
Yeah. So I said, okay, I'll go work $15 an hour. And they said, no way. You have 2 degrees, you're 2 master's degrees, you can't. So because I had to pay for my bed. So I was making $25 an hour that they approved me.
They take a cut out of your thing.
Yeah, they take a cut. So it's almost like the only way I can go and work for do my work was if they could have a cut of it. And I think it was 20% of my pay.
And that's a whole issue with reentry. That's why I just joined an organization for reentry. It's one of the biggest failures.
Yeah.
Prison has its own issues in itself, and prison reform and stuff like that. And that's going to take years to fix. But reentry is something that they could fix now.
Yeah.
The fact that you're supposed to get freedom when you're going to these things just for them to be even stricter.
Yeah.
It's so hard. I remember there would be guys in these halfway houses that are like, take me back, violate me. I'll go do the last few months inside. I don't want to be here because they're so petty, and it's these kids. They're not even COs, like you said.
No, they're not.
They are kids. They are young kids that are intermediate. I think I went through 2 case managers because they were like, yep, I'm here just to do my 6 months or whatever, and then I'm out.
And then he had the head of the house who was just really strict. And every woman in Danbury said, don't go to halfway house. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I want to go home.
That's what I said.
Halfway home, I'm going. And I should have done my whole time at Danbury because it was, we had chores to do. So now
Food's worse. Visitors worse.
So everything. So, but they approved my job. So now I have my car. I drove home every day at 7:30 because my office was in my house. I would drive home, I would work, and I have to go back to the halfway house to sleep.
Did they give you home confinement at all at the halfway house?
Afterwards, Yeah, so I had to work for, I think, 2 weeks before I can go home on weekends. And I could just go home overnight for one night on the weekends and come back to the halfway house. And the halfway house was in the middle of a horrible section, inner city section of Hartford, where there were shootings, there were drug houses around us. And I'm thinking, Community Solutions can't do better than this. They're getting paid millions from the government. And this is what reentry is. Yeah. And I was there for, I think, 4 months. And then again, you get transitioned yet again to home confinement. So now you're going home. Yay, I could do home confinement. I'm getting calls in the middle of the night, and they're popping in, and they had to come to my work, but my work was in my house. So I'm like, they thought they were going to get away with coming once. I said, oh no, you got to come on. You do to all the other women, you got to come while I'm working too. Yeah. So I'd make them come twice.
Yeah.
And
halfway house home confinement is worse than, because I was on both. I was on halfway house and then the ankle monitor on probation. they would call you at 3 a.m. My mom's a night owl, so I said, Mom, just wake me up because I'm not answering that phone call at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They call the house phone, but you could set it to call forwarding and if you wanted to leave. And it's such a shanky, you know?
Yeah. See, they checked my phone for call forwarding. I wasn't allowed to have it.
Yeah, there's a way they do that, but there's a way to turn it on and off too.
Oh, really?
Because if they come on a Monday, that's it for the week.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if they come on a Friday, they're not coming on the weekends.
Yeah.
So there's ways around it. Guys would do it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What was like the hardest? I know you weren't in prison for that long, but what was like the hardest way to reintegrate with your family and society?
You know what's funny is people say, yeah, you weren't there that long. I think one day in prison changes you. And when I left, I missed those women. I felt guilty that these women had such a long time. A few did exactly exactly what I did, and some had 2-3 years. And then there was women there that did less, had less of a restitution, and were doing 10 years. The sentencing disparities were insane.
It put your life into perspective, though.
It really did. And I learned a lot about diversity and respect. So now I get home, and I didn't think I'd have a hard time because I was working. And I just kind of went right back into working for myself and doing title searches to make money. And it didn't hit me for 5 years later because I immediately started helping other women. I made a promise to the women in Danbury that I would work to help them. And I kept that. I opened up Evolution Reentry Services.
And what's that?
2016. And that is a women's reentry organization that helps women prepare for prison. It helps women while they're incarcerated and when they come home, and it also helps families. So we have a weekly support group meeting online on Zoom on Wednesdays, and then we have a family support group on Thursdays. And let me tell you, Ian, when I tell you, I learned what I did to my family from that family support group. I can't do it anymore. I have somebody else who's a wonderful friend of mine, and I got to give a shout out to him. Bill Avolsi he runs the family group because I just burnt out from what the families go through. They're the ones that are collateral damage. I had it easy, I realized. And I was so selfish. Like when I was inside, I would call my husband and say, I need money on my books. And not even thinking what he was going through. He was putting money from our credit cards just to get me through. People don't understand. You got to pay for your stay in prison. He was paying $300-400 a month because back then phone calls weren't free.
Yeah, the phone calls are expensive. Emailing they had in the system, the commissary, everything.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And
but he stuck with you.
He stuck.
That's what matters.
Yeah. Well, the poor guy. My mother was cooking for him every night. So I came home. He was 20 pounds heavier because my mother was there every night.
Were your parents supportive when you got home too?
Yeah, my family was supportive. And again, nobody said, "Are you okay? What happened? How was prison?"
Did you see a therapist at all?
Not at first, no. So I just went right into help mode, fix mode, right again. But now I was doing it legally, So I'm thinking, okay, I'm healing. But in reality, I was just doing what I was doing in a different way. And I got really, really obsessed with helping women and their families, and especially while they were incarcerated, to keep them have support. I email with them. I stay in contact with them. I stay in contact with their families. My husband speaks to other husbands. My kids speak to other kids.
That's great that your kids do that.
Yeah. They.
How old are your kids now?
My son's 30, and my daughter's 28 and then 27.
Well, if they ever want to come on the show, I would love to hear their perspective.
Yeah. My daughter and both my daughters and I did a podcast together.
Okay.
And it was what it was like from when Mom went to prison.
And that's your husband's daughter and your first daughter too?
I had two, and then I adopted my husband's biological daughter.
Okay.
So that made us three, the Brady bunch. Right? And yeah, so they, I tell you, they were so supportive to me and so giving of themselves. And in fact, my son recently played at Rikers.
Oh, that's awesome.
His the chamber symphony he's in Chelsea Symphony, they're the first symphony in the country that is played at a maximum security prison. And they've played twice at Rikers.
So do you think this whole experience, even though it was negative, brought your family closer together in a more positive way?
That portion, my kids and my husband and I, yeah. We went through it in a different way than my brothers, my mother. They didn't have their fixer anymore. My kids held it together. And my husband had a lot of new responsibilities that he wasn't, I left him this is how you do this book. The poor thing didn't even realize, how much I was doing. And so it really helped him in a perspective of, oh my God, this is the pressure that she was under.
Yeah.
And the re-entry part was just, for me, I still I get emotional about the family piece because my kids just were so supportive. And I think the communication portion of it was like, I wrote them about prison. I talked very openly I didn't shelter them. There were women in prison that told their kids that they were on vacation or they were in school or different things. I didn't do that. I didn't think that would benefit in any way.
Did you have like close friends that were curious about prison? Because I know I had a lot of friends that they're kind of scared to ask, but they'll ask because they're like, well, did you have sex in prison? Did you get into a fight? This and are they asking you that kind of stuff?
No, because I didn't really have a lot of friends. I thought I did.
They all leave.
But they all left. And my best friend, I treated her pretty badly. And she did some kind of bad things too, and I covered for her, and my niece the same thing. So I had a lot of deep inside anger that I hadn't dealt with. So we weren't speaking at that point. So I didn't have anybody except my family and who would ask. And I wasn't transparent when I first came home. It was terrifying. I didn't want anyone to know. And then we come to a point where we realize we have two choices. We become transparent or we put it behind us. I decided to be transparent because I didn't want to always look behind me and say they're going to find out. They're going to find out with Google today and with, I just didn't want that on my shoulders. If I'm being transparent, I don't have to worry about anything now.
You have to own your past, you know? You own it, you put it out there, and then what can anyone say to you at that point?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you walk into a room and, you're not hiding anything, what can they say? You're just being you, what can they do?
And that's freedom, right? Yeah. That's freedom.
It's liberating 100%.
It really is. And when I started Evolution, I did that. I wrote my story out, and a friend of mine who also has a reentry company, Progressive Prison Ministries, he put it on his page, and there was a ton of people who read it, and I got a lot of calls because a lot of women don't become transparent.
Yeah. Now, I was reading that you have a restitution of like $1.8 million. Yeah. How do you feel about that? And what's your plan?
I'm angry. I'm angry because I paid Wells Fargo in full $315,000, and the government doesn't recognize that. They won't recognize that. My husband refinanced the house, and Wells Fargo was made whole, and the government's position is that I didn't pay it, my husband did, and that this is recent. And I was like, what difference does it make who paid it? It's paid in full. And then two of the other mortgages I ended up not being responsible for because I had nothing to do with them. And so they were taken off, but they haven't credited me for that yet.
Gotcha.
And I recently got subpoenaed by financial litigation, which this is what people don't talk about, right? We talk about reentry, we talk about prison, but we don't talk about the fact that I am a felon for life. No one could take that away but the president. And we all know none of the presidents that are going to do that.
They're not helping us small fish.
Yeah, we won't get into that. Right? But that's not going to happen for me. And you think that you've done your time. I've done some incredible things since I've been home. I went back to school. I got my master's in criminal justice. I'm getting my doctorate in criminology. I've done a lot of things, and I still am getting harassed and by financial litigation. I was ordered to pay $300 a month. I pay $300 a month. I don't, it's now after the 3 years of probation, because now they transition you from, again, halfway house to home confinement to probation. And you're on probation for 3 years. I got 3 years. And after 3 years, you think it's over. I'm free. It's over. And guess what?
You get that letter in the mail.
Yeah. That letter. You have 30 days to pay $1.8 million with an 11.11% annual interest. And I'm like, yeah. So I called up. This is 8 years ago. I called up and I spoke to one of the women, and we got along really well. And she said, really, it's a form letter we have to send out. You're good. You're in compliance. And I said, okay. Then you get financials. They send you a financial affidavit that you're supposed to fill out. I refuse to. I've never filled out a financial since I've been off probation, because I thought I wasn't in prison. I thought that I'm free now. And I do what I'm supposed to do, and I pay my restitution. I paid $315,000 to Wells Fargo. And anytime I also, years and years and years ago, I gave a mortgage to a guy, a $30,000 mortgage he had on a house. And I got a letter that he was getting foreclosed on, a Greenwich house and a New Haven house. So I called financial litigation. I said, hey, this happened. He's getting foreclosed on. If you put a lien on those houses, you'll get I'm in second position. I should get something out of it. They ignored it. They didn't do anything about it. So I did the title searches on them, and I sent the title searches to financial litigation. I said, look, here's the title search. I'm in second position. Put a lien. Did nothing about it. Yeah. I got subpoenaed recently, and all of a sudden, because I got subpoenaed, they wanted to look good. They put a lien on it and the house after they're both foreclosed on already, and they sent a writ to the state of Connecticut to give them any money that was due to me. But I had told them about a year ago. If they did it then, they could have had more money for the victim.
It's crazy.
It's just crazy. There's no common sense, right, to the whole thing. So I hope your listeners get this, that yes, I committed a crime. I was sentenced by a judge. I was judged and sentenced. But I'm still being judged and sentenced every day by financial litigation. So I'm still in prison, because if I make $2, they're going to take $1. So it truly is not just in a criminal justice system when people have gone to prison, they did a crime, and the financial crimes, when they come home, many people have astronomical restitutions that they could never pay.
Yeah.
Who could pay $1.8 million? Right? I was in school for 4 years. I owe, what I owe.
Well, you have life, and it's like, that's something I struggle with. Like, how do you live a life and also try to make right of the past when you've already completed a prison sentence too?
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone has the right answer to that. And the government can be the government, and, it is what it is. I think you do your best every day. You get up, you do something you're passionate about, you work towards it. And you don't ignore it, like my plan is to pay off my restitution. But I'm not going to live in a box and pay, everything I have every month for it. But I always will say, I wrote a letter to them. I said, listen, I sell this podcast, I sell my movie rights, whatever. They can have it all. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want to live a normal life. I don't need to be driving around a Ferrari and still owe the money, like Wolf of Wall Street, perfect example.
Right?
He's got the mansion known to $100 billion. I'm living in a studio apartment and have a finance car. So they could take a hike.
Well, I think the biggest thing for them was they couldn't take my house. Yeah. Because it wasn't my house.
It's your,
It was my husband's house, and they couldn't take it. And my husband and I got divorced after I came home. And we went through a little rocky.
You guys got back together though? Or?
Yeah, we never really completely broke up, but his finances were intermingled and he was going through a tough time. He supported me through everything, but now after it's over, he's getting judged.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm divorcing you. We love each other. You know, why should you legally have to be responsible for anything?
Do you still live together?
Oh, yeah, of course. We've since gotten remarried.
Oh, you guys got remarried.
Yeah,
okay,
after probation. We got remarried after probation.
That's nice.
And I just felt like during probation, they were just judging him so bad. And my family's been through enough because of me.
Yeah.
So now I had this guilt. And he was like, you're not divorcing me. I said, well, you can't, you know, I am.
Yeah.
And so we went through that during through probation, but we've always been together. And, you know, I think people think I have so much money because I have a house. And what they don't see is I don't have any things. We learned that in prison. We live out of a locker. Things mean nothing to me. You know, in that house, I have a dining room table and 3 beds and a couple of side tables. I don't really have much. I don't buy clothes.
I mean, that saying, you can always rent like a Lamborghini or whatever, just because you're driving around and it doesn't mean you have it.
Yeah, that's the thing is the mortgage is low. It's $2,800 where most people's rent is more than that. So I get subpoenaed and I go to court. The same courtroom that I got sentenced in. Now the trauma, you know, this is the last couple of years that I really started to
You're going
feel
through it again, yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to have some dreams. If I hear keys now, I'm like getting kind of flipped out a little bit from the guards' keys. And I think financial litigation, because this new attorney, Attorney Apoku, her name is, and I could call her out because it's the truth. She took over just 6 months ago. Now I've been home 10 years, right? Well, 8 years. And I've gotten along, paid my restitution for 8 years. I've missed a couple payments during COVID, but I even paid on my credit card if I have to. And she decides she's going to subpoena me, and she wants me to fill out financials, and I won't. I'm not an accountant. I'm self-employed. I really don't know how much I make to the T. You know, I pay my bills. Evolution Reentry doesn't make any money. I help women for free. If we get donations, it's very minimal.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not signing a financial form. And so she's asking me questions. I'm on the stand, and she's asking me questions. And it was just her, me, the judge there. I didn't go with an attorney. I have nothing to hide. And she says to me, your daughters got married? And I said, one of them got married. And she said, how'd you pay for that? Who paid for the wedding? I said, I did. How'd you do that? I said, well, you have my Discover card statement in front of you. You could see all the charges. I'm pretty much on credit cards. She's my daughter, you know. And did you not want me to help pay for her wedding? I paid my restitution, and I paid $315,000 towards Wells Fargo. So they're paid. Mm-hmm. And she, you know, badgered me about, you know, what about jewelry? And I think I was telling you before, she said, you know, in the last 10 years, have you had any assets that you gave away for less than you owed? And I said, of course I have. I have 3 kids, right? Everything. They backpack when they come home. They come home and they go home with wine and, you know. Yeah. And yeah, my daughter on her wedding day was given my mother's ring. My mother gave me a ring that I gave to my daughter. This was a big problem. Yeah. How much was that ring worth? I said, I have no idea. I've never gotten it. I didn't get it appraised. It's been in the family forever. Yeah. She badgered me. And, you know, I gave her everything they wanted. I printed out all my bank statements. She wanted my business bank statements. And my business, since my daughter has taken over my title search company, it's not mine anymore. It's been passed down to my daughter because I do full-time. I do with Evolution and in school. And they wanted the financials of when I owned it. And they could see clearly the company did well, but it paid its employees and it paid salaries. And at the end of the year, what I used to do, and I hope my daughter continues, whatever was left in the bank account, we split between all the...
an owner's draw.
I split it between my title searchers.
Oh, the title searchers.
Yeah.
Okay. Like a bonus.
Yeah, it's not a lot left. And the title search business is, you know, it's very sloppy once again. Yeah. There's going to be another, you know.
So after all of this, everything you've been through, and your story is interesting because it's relatable to people in the sense that this could happen to anyone.
Yeah.
Like this could literally, it's one wrong decision can, that's why people like my story, because it's relatable, because I could be someone's, son or brother or child or whatever. So after everything you've been through, what's your message? What do you want people to take away from your story?
I want people to know that good people make bad choices. We are not defined by the choices we make, but we are defined by how we handle those choices and go forward. And I was judged by a judge already. I should not be sentenced again over and over if I apply for a job. Any woman I work with, they apply for jobs. If they don't disclose, a month later they're getting fired because they find out. If they do disclose, they're not getting hired. And they're being judged over and over and over again. I mean, when I applied for my master's in criminal justice, I went to Fordham for my master's in social work. They denied me because I had a felony. I went to Albertus Magnus, who I love so much, and we're working on a college to bridge program for Niantic right now. They're phenomenal. And people, women, men who come home from prison need to be embraced. They've been through hell. And they made a bad mistake. I shouldn't say that. I didn't make a mistake. I made a bad choice. It was my conscious choice. But I handled it and I moved forward. I just got inducted into the Connecticut Hall of Change. But yet I got to go back. I got subpoenaed for August 29th because I won't fill out I won't sign a financial. Because I'm fearful of the government,
It's scary and it's traumatic. But Jackie, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a great conversation. Yeah. We wish you the best with everything you have going on.
Thank you.
To the listeners, the viewers, we'll have your information in the description of the show. They could reach out to you, connect with you. Yeah. And we'll have to check out Teresa's book now to see where she shouted you out.
Yeah, you definitely got to. But thank you so much, Ian, for having, and thank you for your platform. There needs to be platforms like you have so people do hear the realities that people make bad choices. We're just real people. We're just people trying to get through life like everybody else.
Well said.